The Hydra is a symbol in Greek mythology of the problem of infinite problems. Okay, coming forward. Every time that you cut off a head of the Hydra, 2 would grow in its place. It is generally said to have 8 mortal heads in 1 immortal head. Before we really get into this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can see more videos like this one. We needed to take down our forestays in order to get hauled out. Luckily, since we had done that in Hammamet, it wasn't too stressful to take those down. At the moment, I don't have the best history of haul-outs and them going exactly according to plan. If you may recall, you might remember a year ago when we did the haul-out in Croatia, and then that turned into a whole 4+ month incident being out of the water. Coming out of the water is a wee bit anxiety provoking because of the history of that, but we need to get hauled out because of the whole Lenosa incident running aground. We pull the boat out of the water and we can very clearly see the damage that needs to be repaired. One of the lessons that I've learned multiple different times while sailing is that almost everything is harder and almost everything takes more time than you think it will.
We're here. We're on sticks, and it's almost 5 o'clock.
And then we were in our spot for the next, ideally, 5 days. The boat is its own organism to some degree. It's got everything that it needs to be self-sufficient. And because of that, you're upkeeping a world, you're upkeeping a universe, a mini universe. The things that you do in terms of repairing and maintaining spill over to all aspects of life. In order to replace or upgrade, you have to first deconstruct and destroy. The process of healing almost always incurs pain. You have to do more damage to repair it, right? Like you have to cut back the fiberglass in order to add more. The way that Hercules killed the Hydra was he cut off the 8 mortal heads, and when the 1 head remained, Hercules buried the still living 1-headed Hydra under a large boulder. Hydra was never killed, just buried for some poor sap to flip over that boulder. We were able to get the skeg near the rudder fiberglass and start fixing that, and then we're also able to get the aft part of the keel fiberglass. The main thing, though, that we're waiting on is for the forward part of the keel to dry out so that we can fiberglass that, because if it is wet, the fiberglass will not bond.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan city, and it's from the same family that caused
coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know.
The world are keeping a very close watch on a new virus in China. It's known as novel coronavirus. So far, 300 cases have been reported, and 6 people have died. And the first week, the virus remained in Asia, but now it's hitting closer to home, with the United States.
We will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
We are stuck in Magaster, Tunisia, with the boat out of the water. How much are you willing to suffer and adjust your plans accordingly to unknown factors? Things that are outside of your control, things that you don't even know about yet. We are confined to the boat and to the marina for 24 hours a day, unless we need to go get groceries or medical supplies. In the unknown is potential. And that potential could be good, and that potential could be bad. The only way to find out what's in the unknown is to go explore it and to go find out for yourself what specifically is there. Day 1, quarantine in Magaster, Tunisia. So far, have been editing and making pancakes.
We don't have maple syrup. That one's on me.
And since we're stuck here for a while, we figured we should meet the locals, the local yard cats. This is Mother Cat. Mother Cat. The sickly gray cat. And the beautiful pregnant cat. This cat actually never got named because it got hit by a car. We also have Big Puss. These are our only friends. And they're only friends with us because we pay them with food. Since the keel still isn't drying quickly at all, people have advised me that I should grind it back even more, and that would allow more water to drip out and dry faster, so now it's just a waiting game. But luckily, we've got all sorts of different jobs we need to do. We've got to do touch-up paint on the boat. In order to do that, we need to sand back the original paint as well as grind back some of the parts that are damaged and then do filler work. Also, this part of the deck, as you can tell, it's squeaky. I don't know if it's delaminated or what, so I did a test line of holes. So the idea is you drill a hole in it and then you put epoxy in it, and that epoxy bonds everything back together. I wanted to also test it to make sure I didn't drill all the way through the deck. And it actually worked perfectly because it dripped all the way through into the galley. So I ended up drilling another 300 holes. It needed to be done. If you treat a symptom, you just result with more problems because you aren't actually addressing the root cause of the problem. This is what we found with the keel. We thought the problem was that it just needed to be fixed and that it was wet. And the reason that it was wet was because water had gotten up in there from it being damaged, there being a hole in the keel. And so while it was in the water, water got up in there. And then we found out that no, the reason that it's wet is because there's a hole in the bilge. Even though we had thought the bilge was dry, there's still small amounts of water in the bilge that needed to be cleaned out. But back to the part of the deck. So I filled that one part with epoxy, but there was a bigger part that I thought needed to be fixed as well. So I figured, well, I could drill about 1,000 holes and fill all these with epoxy, or I could just cut out this section of the deck. You just don't know what you don't know. What is the depth of the problems that you actually want to solve, and how deep are you willing to go into that? You end up in a Schrodinger's cat situation of, is the cat alive or is the cat dead? Well, you don't know until you open the box. How willing are you to work with that and be flexible and adjust as you go? But once you've opened Pandora's box, you can't go back to the ignorance that was before that. It turns out that the wood underneath was absolutely fine, and that I didn't actually need to cut that piece out. So I went ahead and cut out another chunk of the deck. I just needed to know what was in there. How much do you want to explore, and how much of this unknown do you want to uncover and actually understand? I heard something really interesting from Laird Hamilton, big wave surfer. He has this idea that in the body, that pain is a signal to your nervous system to heal.
Well, hello there, Jackson.
Bonjour.
And so his whole idea has to do with like painkillers and actually extending the process of healing.
Wanna go around the breaker?
Let's do it.
It's so cool how close to the rocks you can get, because you got a draft of like 2 centimeters or something.
It's an interesting concept and really kind of profound to think about, that there's pain. Pain is the trigger to healing. It's through the pain that the healing arrives, or it's the catalyst for the healing, the catalyst for the growth, for the regeneration.
Wow. This looks like it was cut. But you can't keep a boat in here. There's no entrance point. So what was it for? That's exactly what it's like. Sideways limbo. Like a glove.
I found another pocket in which the bilge was harboring water. And so I went to clean it out and accidentally dropped my sponge down into that point, which is nigh inaccessible basically. And so I had to fish it out with a leg off of my tripod. And so I strapped the GoPro to it, and I was using the GoPro as a remote camera and using my phone as a monitor so that I could fish through the bilge, not completely blind. That actually worked a treat. That's good. We have found, because of the time lapse, that there is definitely still a water leak into the bilge. It looks like it's leaking and seeping through the fiberglass, so we're gonna take apart the water storage area. Right there is water. So that means that obviously water's coming out of here, and I don't think it's coming out of there. Fixing the keel led us to a problem that we didn't even know existed, which was that the water tank needed to be repaired in multiple different ways. Not only was it leaking into the bilge, but it was also completely rotted. I think we need a new one of those. Yikes. Got wee bits of sediment. Nothing too crazy though. These are my epoxying gloves, my fiberglassing gloves. Now that the deck has been completely cut apart multiple different times, I need to put it back together. And in order to do that, we need a lot of epoxy and weight to weigh down the piece of fiberglass. And so in theory, you just cut out the fiberglass and then you can just epoxy it back together, and then it's happy days, everything goes smoothly, and you can just kind of seal up the cut line. If you're anxious about something and you make a plan of how you're going to solve it, even if you don't start enacting that plan right away, just the aspect of making a plan will reduce your anxiety. But then the anxiety will come back unless you execute the plan. Okay, I don't know exactly how to go about fixing this whole keel situation, and I can't create a hard and fast plan with it because there's multiple variables that I can't control, but I do know what we're going to do next. Just knowing what we're going to do next, what is the next step that we're going to take, and when are we going to take that step, reduces anxiety and takes away the mental blockage of looping in your head of like, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. It's just, what is the next step?